Hi, my dear students. I hope everything is going well with you. I hope you studied our previous lessons and the grammar, especially the grammar. Okay? Practice well. Today we are going to continue and we are going to have lesson 3. At the end of this lesson, you are going to know how the water is formed. Have you ever wondered how the water is formed? Let's see together. In this slide 26, is the water cycle. The water cycle. What is the water cycle? How is the water formed? As you see, we have sun, we have clouds, we have rain, we have something here. What is this long word? It's evaporation. Evaporation. And let's see. I want you to open your book, page 68. In the next slide. You will see and you will know information about the forming of the water. Let's listen together and then we will explain again. The water cycle. The water cycle. Where does water come from? Where does water come from? Water travels from land to sea, from land to sea, in a process called water cycle. Okay. Of course, you know what is the cycle means. Cycle. These are the stages. Let's listen to the stages or the steps of the water cycle. First one is evaporation. 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 Let's start on the ground. Heat from the sun makes water in the sea, in lakes and rivers start to evaporate. The water turns into vapor. This vapor rises up into the atmosphere. The atmosphere is the air around it, surrounding us. Okay, so the evaporation, in this process, the sun heats the water in the rivers, lakes, and all the water surface. They are heated and they are evaporated. There are water vapor coming up, goes up to the air or the atmosphere. Okay, next one is condensation. This is the next step is condensation. As the air rises, it starts to cool. So it's cold over there. This makes the water vapor condense. This makes the water vapor condense into drops of water. These join together to make clouds. Okay, so the condensation, when the water vapor goes up, it cools and it forms small droplets of water. These droplets of water come together like this, forming the clouds. This is how the clouds form. Okay. The third step is precipitation. Precipitation. Wind moves the clouds in the sky. The wind moves the clouds in the sky. Of course, if you look to the sky, you will see the clouds are moving. So this is by the wind. The clouds get bigger and heavier. The clouds get bigger and heavier. Precipitation is when water falls from the clouds. When water falls from the clouds, this is precipitation. This is called precipitation, okay? So, the water comes as rain, snow, or hail. Hail is the small snow, very small, tiny snow comes from the sky. When rain falls on high ground, like mountains, it runs down mountains and hills as rivers. And this is the runoff. The rivers start small and narrow. They get deeper and wider as they gather more water. So now they get deeper and wider as they gather more water. Rivers run to the sea and the cycle starts again with evaporation. Rivers run to the sea and cycle starts again with evaporation. So we started with evaporation, then condensation, then precipitation, then runoff. And it starts all over again. What does it mean, cycle? It starts here and go like that and start again. This is the cycle. Some water soaks into the ground. This is the groundwater. It flows into rivers and lakes, and there are under the ground. These can come back to the surface as a spring, as we have learned in the oasis. Yes. A spring can become a river or a lake if the water evaporates and the cycle starts again. I want you to look in the next slide on the screen here. Slide 28. You will see the sun. Okay? This is a summary of what we have said. The sun heats the water of the sea. Then the water of the sea evaporates and goes up to the sky, forming the clouds. Then the clouds condense by the cold air. Then it gets bigger and bigger and heavier. Then the rain falls down on the mountains and the land. This is precipitation. And when it is on the mountain over there, it runs down. This is runoff and goes to the sea again. This is the meaning of the cycle again. Okay. In the next slide, you will see 4 pictures showing you the meaning of each step of our water cycle. First one is evaporation. If you go to the kitchen with your mommy and she is boiling or cooking, or boiling water or cooking on the stove, you will find the water like this making vapor. This is the evaporation. When the water is heated, it makes water vapor like this. Okay? Next one is number 2. When you see this is the condensation. What does it mean, condensation? To make it close or make it clear for you, when the water boils like this and you take the lid out and you put it on the water vapor like this, after a while you will find droplets of water on the lid here. This is the condensation, because the hot water vapor goes to a cold surface, so it makes droplets of water, and this is condensation. Number 3 is precipitation, when the clouds get bigger and heavier, and they gives us the rain. This is precipitation. And the 4th picture is for runoff. Runoff means water coming down from the mountains or hills into the sea or lakes. Okay, next slide. This is page 69 in your book. Open it, and if you don't see from the screen, you can look on your book the first part. We have 3 parts in this page, and you will see the first part here. Rivers, seas, and oceans. Now you will see how different the water we have on Earth. We have different kinds of water. We have fresh water and salty water. Where can we find them? Let's read to find out. There are 2 types of liquid water. Liquid water. We have 2 types of liquid water: fresh water and salt water. Fresh water and salt water. Those are 2 types. Rivers and lakes have fresh waters. Rivers and lakes have fresh water. Fresh water means that you can drink them. You can drink from the river, you can drink from the lake. Okay? The water comes from precipitation and springs. So you have fresh water in rivers, lakes. The water comes from the precipitation, which is the rain, and springs too. Okay. Seas and ocean have salt water in them, because rain washes minerals from the land and from rocks. Okay, so the seas and oceans, the sea is the sea, you know it. The ocean is the big sea around us. Of course, you know that most of our earth is water. Okay, so the seas and oceans have salt water. Why sea and oceans have salt water? Because the rain washes the minerals and from the land and from the rocks and bring it down to the sea. These minerals go into the sea in the runoff water. Rivers don't have salt water because the rain keeps fresh water moving through them. So rivers don't have salt water because the rain keeps the fresh water running. When they are running, they don't keep salt. Okay? Okay, next slide. Here you can see some pictures of the sea, the ocean, and the river, and the different one. The next slide here, slide 32. We have an experiment. Experiment means something you did in your laboratory in the school, and you will see how can we separate the salt from the water. Okay, we have done an experiment in our science class. We put salt water in a beaker, as shown in the picture in front of you. We heated the water in the beakers. Look what has happened. The next picture, the water has evaporated and we can see the salt. Of course, you heat it for a long time, not for a short time. The water has evaporated. The beaker is empty at the end. Okay. Next slide. Here in front of you, you will see some information about the different places containing water in our world. The Dead Sea. The Dead Sea is a small sea and it is surrounded by land. The water here has a lot of salt in it. Because of the salt, you can float in the Dead Sea. So if you go to the Dead Sea area and you went into the water, you're not going to soak in the water, you're going to be floating on, because the Dead Sea has the highest percentage of salt in the world. So if the water has a lot of salt or a very high percentage of salt, so everything floats on it, like in the Dead Sea. This is picture B. In picture, in number 2, picture A, the water is an oasis, is fresh. You can drink from the spring over there. It comes from lakes and rivers and are under the ground too. Okay, this is picture A, number 2. Number 3, ice is frozen water. Ice is a frozen water, by the way. In polar regions, you remember the polar habitat? When ice is formed from salt water, the salt is squeezed out and only the water freezes. This means the ice isn't salty. You can melt the water and drink it. So in the polar areas, of course, everything is icy over there. But the most interesting information here, that the ice doesn't have salt. The ice doesn't have salt, so you can take the ice and melt them and drink them. Okay. I think you had a lot of information today, the water cycle and the fresh and salt water. I want you to study them and reread them again. Thank you and bye-bye.